Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 733 for the 23rd of October 2022. Richard Saunders coming to you from, looking out the window there, rainy Sydney, Australia. And it's raining and flooding in many areas in this state, New South Wales, and in other states as well. It's not good. It's not good. Areas that are already soaked, the ground is soaked, are receiving more rain, and there's simply nowhere for the rain to go, so the floods are occurring. My thoughts go out to those people battling those floods at the moment. Maybe the Skeptic Zone can give you a brief distraction from that and what is coming up on this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone. Somewhere that's not flooding, Las Vegas. We chat to our correspondent from Canada, who is in Las Vegas, Adrienne Hill. You can count on Adrienne. Adrienne, a few days ago, got in touch with me and gave me a little bit of a preview of CSICon, the big convention where all my friends, and probably some enemies, are at the moment, as I record, in Las Vegas. I've been looking at the photographs, green with envy, wishing I could be there. Alas, not this time, maybe next time. Anyway, find out about CSICon coming up at the top of the show. And over the next few weeks, I hope to bring you more reports and interviews, thanks to the efforts of my friend Rob Palmer. Following that report, it's the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, normally read by Adrienne Hill, but she's in Las Vegas having a good time, so I'll read it this time. And that newsletter is compiled by Tim Mendham. Then a blast from the past, a blast from 6 years ago, such a good report from such a good reporter, I thought I would repeat it again. Jo Alabaster, in her segment Evidence Please, gave us a report about something I did not see this time around at Mind Body Wallet, Mind Body Spirit. This is the dreadful substance called Black Salve, which claims to cure your cancers. Find out about how dangerous this Black Salve quackery was then and still is with Jo Alabaster. And to round off the show, we go back to the Trove archives, this time from 1972, a report called The Psychic Side. See what people way back then thought the future would hold by the way of, or in the way of psychic powers and research and acceptability and things like that. So no matter what you're doing, I hope the Skeptic Zone can give you a little bit of entertainment this weekend. I don't know, maybe you have house renovations on. New decking, possibly. New walls, new ceiling, new floor. Maybe you're going for a walk. Maybe you're in the car right now or on the train. But now it's time for me to run downstairs and have some leftover sausages. Leftover sausages. I think they're still okay. I'll see. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. You can count on Adrienne with Adrienne Hill. And joining me now all the way from fabulous Las Vegas, it's none other than Adrienne Hill. Hello, Adrienne.
How are you doing, Richard?
I'm wet. It's raining cats and dogs in Sydney. I've just been out doing some gardening, and I had to stop because the rain came down, and I thought, what a great opportunity. A good excuse to contact Adrienne. Adrienne, you're in Las Vegas. I wish I was there too for CSICon.
I wish you were with us as well. I wish you were here.
What's the plan? What do you hope to see? Who do you hope to meet? And what do you hope to do?
The big thing that I'm really looking forward to is meeting so many people that I've met online over the last couple of years since the pandemic that I feel like I know pretty well. And actually seeing them in person is probably my biggest excitement. And It's been happening. I met a lot of people already from trivia, and it's surreal to see them. And they're always surprised when they see me because I'm tall. And when you're on a computer screen, you can't tell how tall people are. So I get quite the reaction, which is fine. And I'm also really excited to meet people like Kenny Biddle, who I feel like I know pretty well because we've interacted a lot about ghosts and other things, and he's had me on his show. And we've only ever met very, very briefly in Washington, D.C. And so it's really great to have a chance to talk to him and spend a little bit more time with him. And of course, to see Susan Gerbic. It's always a lot of fun, and I'm going to be exhausted. I know she's going to keep me extremely busy. Of course, I'm all right. You know what she's.
I know. Susan Gerbic is the original Energizer Bunny, folks. I tell you that.
She absolutely is. And I'm also very excited about having George Schwab being the MC for the whole thing. He was the MC when I was here for my very first SciCon, which was in 2018. And he was amazing. And I'm so excited he's back again. And so I'm looking forward to that. And of course, all the speakers look fantastic. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, of course, is our keynote tonight. So I'm looking forward to that as well. I'm just looking forward to it all. I'm looking forward to just being with people instead of seeing them on a screen.
It's really important, folks. And there's this expression we hear a lot. Preaching to the choir is a waste of time. And there is a truth in that. On the flip side, though, I've been in the choir plenty of times, going to conventions and having people preach at me, but I learn a lot. I do learn a lot, and I think it's a little unfair to say we're wasting our time because, like any group of like-minded people, every now and then we like to get together and discuss our core interests, and I really can't see any harm in that. And of course, we must put our efforts otherwise to reaching lots of people throughout the world, throughout different communities. But to get together once in a while to chat amongst ourselves, I think is a very good thing.
It's a very good thing. And it's nice to be with others that you don't have to sort of watch what you say, if you know what I mean. Like you can speak honestly. Like we were at the Omega store, which is kind of an attraction here in Vegas. And outside, after we went through the I don't even know what you call it. When you go through the mystery store, I'll just call it that. On the outside of it, there was a psychic who did tarot readings, palm readings, etc. And we all looked at each other and made had a little laugh and said, hey, maybe we should do it. It would be kind of fun. But, you can be honest with other skeptics because we all think the same way about it. And you don't have to kind of watch what you say. And I really like that. It's a very it's a comfortable place to be.
It is. And again, there's nothing wrong with being in your comfort zone. No. We hear a lot of people saying you must step out of your comfort zone, this, and this, and this. And sometimes what's the words, toxic positivity come to mind? No, right. Sometimes you need to be comfortable. You need not to worry about those things.
Exactly.
And I think it's good for your mental health.
Oh, and I have a really fun story for you, too. Last night, I was sitting around a table and said I knew Melanie Tresick King was going to be here. So we have been texting each other, and we got together, and we were sitting around a table, and more people were joining us. We were having a blast. And this fellow I'd never met sat down, and Melanie says, hey, he's been on the Zone, too. And so John Guy sits down next to me and he looks at me and he says, are you on the Skeptic Zone? And I went, yes. And he says, I recognize you from your picture from when I listened to the Skeptic Zone. And that was really cool. And it turns out he was on the Skeptic Zone as well, promoting his book.
Yes,
and I've actually purchased. Yeah, so I purchased the book from him and I'm going to get a signed copy. So it's really exciting to meet these people that you've heard on your show or other shows and just get together with them and have a good time and chat about all things skeptical and all things not skeptical, talking about travel or other conferences or other people that have been at conferences. It's a really fun time.
Well, Adrienne, again, I'm As I said to you just before we started, I'm just dying of jealousy here. I wish I could be there. It's not always easy, of course, to travel to the other side of the world. There are certain things get in the way, like a planet. but I do envy you. Please give all my best to my dear friends. I'll be missing them terribly. And what I'll get you to do over the course of the next few days is pull aside Rob Palmer and have a chat to him. And we'll play that on the Skeptic Zone coming up, I think.
Oh, that would be awesome. I will definitely do that. And I believe he's arriving today. I don't know if he's here yet. He hasn't texted me. I'm sure he will. I know we will be getting together, and I'll look forward to interviewing him. Excited.
Well, he's just texted me as we've been chatting. He says, "Hi, how are you? Just landed in Vegas." So there you go.
There we go. So hopefully soon I will be getting together with Rob and we can sit down for an interview in a quiet spot. Now in Vegas, it's not easy to find a quiet spot. So hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Well, I'm wishing you a wonderful weekend full of talks and interesting people and good times. But for now, Adrienne Hill, all the way over there in fabulous Las Vegas, thank you very much.
Thanks. Great talking to you.
Carrie, is it?
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Carrie.
I am Psychic Ross, and I will be reading you this evening.
Oh, interesting. Well, okay. I co-host a podcast. It's called Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
Yes, I'm sensing that. The spirits are telling me it is a show about
Well, it's about
poodles.
like fringe science and spirituality and claims of the paranormal.
And
you knew that.
You do research online.
But more importantly, like we do in-person investigations.
In-person investigate as well.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
See?
Me and my friend, this is so weird, my friend Ross, same name as you.
Weird.
He and I just go and try them all out. And actually, we've gone to a number of psychics. And to be honest with you, it's a lot like this. It's called Oh No, Ross and Carrie. They can find it at MaximumFun.org.
I could have told you that.
It's time to read the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, Newsletter 159, brought to you every other week by the efforts of Tim Mendham at Skeptics Headquarters and sent to your inbox, as it was sent to mine. And don't forget you can subscribe to this newsletter and get it every other week simply by visiting skeptics.com.au and signing on the dotted line, or clicking the box, or something like that. Newsletter 159. Hi all, says Tim. The recent decision to award close to US $1 billion in damages against shock jock Alex Infowars Jones for his insidious and false claims against the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre is a just and encouraging outcome. How likely authorities are to actually get that sort of money out of Jones is another issue. Estimates are that he only has about, $200 million. And no doubt will be doing all he legally can to avoid paying anything like it. Nevertheless, this is a lesson for conspiracy theorists. Their actions have consequences. Next step is to go after those heartless and dangerous people who took heed of claims made by Jones and others that the victims and their families were fakes, crisis actors, and consequently felt entitled to record them, make abusive comments online, make rape and death threats, and in one case, urinating on the grave of a 7-year-old victim and threaten to dig up their coffin. Jones will probably get away with as much as he can and continue his pernicious campaigns of falsehoods and paranoia. The righteous souls who threaten the victims' families may never be found, hiding as trolls largely do behind online anonymity. If you need any proof that conspiracy theorists can be more than duplicitous, at the extremes they can be malicious, heartless, and dangerous, then this is it. This indicates why the ongoing job for skeptics, authorities, and the public to call out irrationality and unreason at the beginning of a movement is so necessary. and not to wait for consequences that may eventually prove fatal. On a lighter note, read on. Tim. Okay, Tim, we'll do just that. And just to remind you that all the articles I'm reading, the highlights from this newsletter, when you get the newsletter in your inbox, each article, each little item comes with a link you can click to see the full story. Australian Skeptics News, face-to-face at Skepticon, December the 3rd and 4th. As we've been reporting for some weeks and months now, the Australian Skeptics National Convention will be held in Canberra on the first weekend of December. And as mentioned, over that time, international speakers include Claire Klingenberg, chair of the European Council of Skeptical Organisations, and the ESP podcast, the European Skeptics podcast, who were only on the show in the last few weeks, as well as online appearances by Dr. Steve Novella from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe and Brian Dunning, flying in from a UFO to give his report online. For more information and to buy your tickets, visit skepticon.org.au. Bent Spoon Award nominations. You still have time to put in a nomination for the Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon Award, one of the least sought-after credits in the skeptical world, or any world for that matter. If you would like to put forward someone for this non-prestigious award, then go to the Bent Spoon page at skeptics.com.au. What is déjà vu? Interesting and fairly short article on how psychologists are exploring that weird feeling of reliving an experience or location. The research suggests that one contributing factor can be spatial resemblance of a new scene to one in memory that fails to be consciously called to mind at the moment, though this is unlikely to be the only factor. On the other hand, you may think you've already read this article. Oh, Tim! That's a knee slapper. How to search for reliable medical information online. While Dr. Google is no substitute for seeing a health professional, seeking medical information online can have benefits. Australian skeptic Dr. Rachel Dunlop, of course Dr. Rachie, one of the Skeptic Zone reporters, Dr. Rachie reports. Dr. Rachel Dunlop, with others, is quoted, quote, "Medical information sourced from the internet is never a substitute for seeing a qualified healthcare professional, but it can prepare you for a visit to the doctor, help you to understand your health issues, and provide support from other patients if you are getting your information from reliable and trusted sources." End quote. Are core memories real? An article on the myth of having a small set of memories, often from early childhood, that define our personality. Some problems. 1, personality is not defined by memories, and 2, we have a lot more than, say, 5 core memories. The beginnings of a global super conspiracy theory. The Illuminati conspiracy theory justifies the shift in worldview from the old to the new. It creates a reason which shields the believer from having to admit the possibility that some perspective of theirs was wrong. By placing the change as a result of a formless enemy, the change can be dismissed as a result of the conspiracy. Thus, they no longer have to adapt to that change. Thoughtful, lengthy article from the UK Skeptics. The September issue of The Skeptic magazine is out, the journal from Australian Skeptics, with a major look at the mysterious and often secretive world of organised exorcisms in Australia, and not just from the Catholic Church. Also included in the September issue are articles on dowsing priests, falling frogs, and tips on how to stay afloat on a sea of misinformation. Plus, a review of the involvement of a psychic in a recent court case on the disappearance of Lynn Dawson and the guilty decision in the trial of her ex-husband. If you haven't subscribed to the Skeptic magazine, now is the best time to do so. You can sign up for the hard copy or the digital edition, or both. The digital is offered free for those who take up the hard copy version. It's a lot easier to read it in the bath if you get the magazine itself. Contact the editor, that'll be Tim Mendham, at skeptics.com.au if you're not sure if your existing subscription needs renewing. Items of interest. Most haunted counties in the UK. Research from Psychic World lists the frequency of paranormal events across the UK counties. This article is from a Lancashire publication. Takes pride in that county's performance, even though it came in at just outside the top 10. The list covers 11,700 paranormal sightings from 59 countries, with Yorkshire, London and Essex taking out the top 3 spots. The most prevalent type of paranormal sightings in the UK is phantom horses and riders like horse-drawn carriages and ghostly horsemen. Really? No ghosts in pubs knocking over glasses? Haunted? Horses? 10 most profitable horror movies of all time. Horror movies often have a tiny budget, but can generate relatively huge returns. Did you hear that, Maynard? We might have to do a horror movie next. Or even, not relatively, just huge. The initial production budget for Paranormal Activity, which tops the list, was less than US $15,000. Producers gave it the go-ahead for an overall budget of US $450,000, and it eventually made US $194 million. Paranormal Activity isn't just the most profitable horror movie of all time, it has the greatest return rate of any movie ever. And on that scary note, that's all for this newsletter. Don't forget you can get this newsletter delivered to your inbox every other week by going to skeptics.com.au and signing up.
Hi, I'm Ben Radford, co-host of Squaring the Strange podcast. In these trying times, as we help each other out to hold on to hope, we want you to know that we're here for you.
Hey, what are you going on about?
Who's interrupting my heartfelt promotional copy?
It's me, Celestia Ward, your co-host. Really? In these trying times? That's the best you can do?
Well, I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. I thought...
That's not what we do.
Oh, for crying out loud, who else is here?
Pascual Romero, your other co-host?
Hey.
We don't do what everybody else does, Ben. That's kind of our thing at Squaring the Strange.
Yeah, we try to approach things a little differently than your standard skeptical talky talk show.
We do our own thing, bringing science, critical thinking, and skepticism to bear on issues of the day. We've got a professional skeptical author, Ben, who has decades of experience researching topics for 12 books and thousands of articles.
And a cartoonist skeptic, Celestia, who knows her stuff when it comes to facial weirdness and the psychology of perception.
And a badass heavy metal rock star and tech engineer, Pascual, who brings knowledge of all things audio, plus a bunch of neck tattoos.
Squaring the Strange explores topics both mysterious and mundane through a critical lens. Monsters, panics, media literacy.
Okay, forget the whole trying times promo idea. But we have chupacabras and clown panics, right?
Yes,
Ben.
Hello, this is Jo Alabaster. When you spot something that's of concern, it can be worth spending a couple of minutes filling in a report or noting it publicly via social media. Little actions such as these are greater than no action. They do add up and can be the starting point for greater change. This week, I went and had a minor procedure to remove a lesion after having a skin cancer check performed. It's highly unlikely that the lesion is a potentially problematic one, but that can't be completely ruled out unless it's sent to pathology and examined. This experience had me thinking about skin cancer and alternative medicine, namely Black Salve. For those of you not familiar with Black Salve, also known as bloodroot or Cansema, it is a herbal preparation which proponents claim can draw out cancer cells when applied to the skin. Black Salve preparations typically contain zinc chloride and chaparral, also known as creosote bush, and bloodroot, the extract of which is called sanguinarine, an ammonium salt which attacks and destroys living tissue. Black salves are corrosive substances, classified as escherichotics. Escherichotics are substances which cause tissue to die and slough off. Black salve proponents believe that when this escherichotic destroys tissue, it is somehow targeting cancer cells, and that when scabs form and fall off, the cancer is being removed from the body. This is sadly very wrong. There is no mechanism by which black salve can mobilize and destroy cancer cells in a targeted manner. The salve merely damages tissue, healthy or not. Use of black salve can result in ulceration, infection, skin damage, deep tissue damage, and muscle damage. If you're feeling not too squeamish and want to see the extent of the damage black salve can cause, Google black salve and have a look at either the Google image search tab or the Black Salve Facebook page. Be warned though, you'll see people with huge ulcers, large scabs, and people who have literal holes in their faces and large areas of tissue missing from arms, necks, and breasts. It's fairly disturbing, frankly, both that people believe they're doing themselves good by using black salve, and that they feel that damaging themselves in this way is less traumatic than going to a doctor, being examined, and undergoing evidence-based cancer diagnosis and treatment. And here's another thing which is troublesome. Many users of black salve hear of it via word of mouth from other black salve users, naturopaths, and other alternative medicine proponents. Some decide to use black salve after a diagnosis from a GP. My own skin cancer doctor has had people ask him about its use, much to his dismay, while others self-diagnose skin cancers or act on the opinions of unqualified people online. There is a reason we have doctors who are specially trained in skin cancer detection and treatment, and pathology labs who conduct histological examination of tissue samples. Diagnosis of skin cancer is by no means as simple as looking to the opinion of someone unqualified to do so. Of course, do keep a close eye on your own skin, but make an appointment with a GP or skin cancer clinic if you notice anything unusual or concerning, and speak with them about how regularly it would be appropriate for you to have your skin checked by a professional. 2 in 3 Australians will be diagnosed with skin cancer by the time they're 70, so this is really worth keeping on top of. To find out more about reducing risks and screening, there's a lot of useful information on the Cancer Council's website at cancer.org.au. Back to black salve. Self or internet diagnosis and the use of black salve don't allow for accuracy. Some lesions and skin spots are benign and don't require any treatment at all. Conversely, those that do need their progression assessed. Black salve can leave behind cancerous cells. The use of black salve can lead to pointless injury and a false sense of having cancer treated. Why do people choose to use black salve? Well, mistrust of evidence-based medicine is a factor, alongside the belief that black salve is somehow safer because it is natural. As with many other dangerous beliefs, getting accurate information out into the public sphere can help, but it can also further polarise those who are heavily invested in the belief. There's a substantial number of black salve adherents who believe that black salve is a cure for cancer being suppressed by Big Pharma, the government, lizard people, and what have you. Publicising the dangers of black salve is one way to reduce its use. Another is via regulation. This is a difficult one, as while the TGA have deemed it unlisted on the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods, there is no effective ban on black salve products. The TGA has, however, issued an alert recommending people do not use black salve and associated ineffective cancer cures, which is useful, as we can then report those selling black salves or products recommending their use, such as the notorious DVD One Answer to Cancer, to the TGA. In 2013, the TGA responded to a complaint made regarding the Australian Vaccination Network's promotion of Black Salve and the sale of the One Answer to Cancer DVD, citing several breaches of the Therapeutic Goods Act 1989. The TGA ordered the removal of any promotion of Black Salve from the AVN's website, and that a retraction be posted, including a link to the TGA's consumer alert on its use. Personally, I'd like to see regulatory agencies come down harder on dangerous products such as Black Salve, but their consumer alert can be useful when approaching third parties. The night before my minor procedure, I decided to have a quick look online to see whether I could find anybody selling Black Salve in Australia. Unfortunately, I didn't have to look too hard. There were several listings on eBay for Black Salve, posted by sellers based in Australia. I filled out reports for each one on their item pages, and then decided to have a go at contacting eBay publicly via Twitter with a polite tweet. Quote, "Hi eBay AU. Several AU listings for Black Salve/Bloodroot Salve. Unsafe and not on TGA register. Can you remove?" With a link to the TGA's warning. End quote. I didn't have a great amount of confidence that anything would come of it, but thought it worth a try nonetheless. The next morning, I awoke to a reply from eBay's Australian account. Quote, Jo Alabaster. "Hey Jo, thanks so much for bringing this to our attention. We're removing all listings now. Shout if there's anything else." End quote. Wow. And a few more listings did appear from the same sellers, with words slightly changed in order to try and evade detection and deletion. I sent links to them back to eBay via Twitter, and they promptly deleted these also. When I let eBay know how much I appreciated their help, the person handling their Twitter account replied, quote, "No worries at all. I made the mistake of Googling that stuff." End quote. I suppose for most people, the images of Black Salve use speak for themselves, and I feel very fortunate that I happened to come across somebody in a position of power to virtually get it off the shelves who was eager to assist when making a complaint. Such people are out there. We don't always find them, or they can't always act, when trying to alert businesses, organisations, or dare I say government-run health websites, to dangerous misinformation or products they're involved in the promotion of. Lobbying against quackery is often a more time-consuming and complicated process than a couple of eBay forms and some tweets. It really is worth taking that first step, though, whether it results in a small and immediate success or is the beginning of a greater campaign. And if you don't feel that larger-scale complaints, lobbying and publicising are your thing, get in touch with other skeptics. Let them know what's going on and see whether they're inspired to take action. There are days when I feel rather overwhelmed by the amount of dangerous quackery out there and helpless to do much about it. I'm acquainted with some people who accomplish amazing things. Medical researchers, doctors and nurses, journalists, Stop the AVN and the Good Thinking Society, and individuals who utilise their expertise and passion to expose and formally complain about charlatans, quacks, and dangerously misled proponents of woo. I've had the privilege of meeting great activists and educators, dedicated communicators, those who engage with the media, the public, and with bodies creating policy, and their efforts completely blow me away. Over the past few years that I've been involved with skepticism, I've become convinced that we can all be doing something useful. Whether it's as simple as sending a complaint to an e-commerce website, engaging politely on social media with those in a position to help stop quackery being spread, sharing evidence-based information when somebody makes an inaccurate claim, letting people know that David Avocado Wolf makes some very dangerous claims about medicine and suggesting they stop sharing his memes on Facebook, or publicly or financially supporting campaigns run by other skeptics. Many great skeptical triumphs, which have helped diminish the proliferation of woo, began with a single person noticing something was wrong, perhaps discussing it with other skeptics, and acting upon it. That said, don't discount the tiny triumphs. They definitely add up. If there's a chance that an action you could take may bring about any measure of good, please consider going ahead with making that complaint or politely engaging with somebody. It may well be worth it.
Hi there, I'm Abhijit and I host the Rationable podcast on berationable.com. Every couple of weeks, I science the hell out of alternative medicines, health and nutrition fads, social media forwards, science news, and lots more. Of course, you can find all of my articles, podcast episodes, and lots more on www.berationable.com. See you there, and until then, always be rationable.
Once again to tiptoe into those archives at Trove at trove.nla.gov.au and other resources from around the world. This time I had to tiptoe down into the centre of the city once again to go to the State Library, down into the depths, into the cellar where they keep the microfilm with newspapers. In this case it was the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper. And I found this because I was just doing a general search on psychic reports, paranormal, that sort of thing. And I ended up in the year 1972 on the 29th of June in the section called Look. And here we find the report, The Psychic Side of Society. A report by Rosalind Dunn. Tales of the Supernatural, Fact or Fraud? I can't believe that, said Alice. You can't? The Queen said in a pitying tone. Try again. Draw a long breath and shut your eyes. Alice laughed. There is no use trying, she said. One can't believe impossible things. I dare say you haven't had much practice, said the Queen. When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. From Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. The Queen was probably psychic, and Alice, like many of us, would cry, fraud. Throughout the years, the supernatural has been given a bad name. Mention clairvoyance, medium, faith healing, or extrasensory perception, and the cynics will tell you it is rubbish. But interest in all things supernatural has never been higher. The young, especially, are dipping into the field. They are studying mysticism and Eastern philosophies, singing Hare Krishna, reading books on the supernatural, and joining societies for psychic research. There even seems to be a certain occult style on record covers and in discotheques. The Australian actress, Judy Champ, thinks they are searching for an unorthodox religious experience. Judy, who has been interested in psychic research since she was 14, is writing a book on leading psychic personalities. People, especially kids, are looking for more than the narrow confines of Christian religion. It's too narrow and too dogmatic for them, she says. I want a broader framework, and an interest in psychic things is one way to find it, because scientists are doing more and more research into these things than ever before. People are ceasing to treat them as mere fraud and trickery. And I'll quickly cut in here to say 1972. It's interesting to see how these arguments have developed over the years. And once again, as is often the case with the media, even today, they'll treat a report of somebody claiming psychic powers as either the real deal or fraud, and miss out in my experience and the experience of Randy and many other people, the majority of people who are simply innocently deluding themselves to one degree or another. Of course, there's the shonks and the frauds out there, of course, but we find so many people who sincerely believe in the powers they think they have. We read on. Mrs. Marjorie Eastling agrees. She is a medium who lectured for 20 years on psychic research at Macquarie Auditorium and for the Psychic Research Society for about 5 years.
There's a great freedom of thought in the world,
she says.
Children are no longer accepting blindly. They are far more thinking and analyzing than their parents were, and they're far more interested in the mind and outer limits to which they can send it.
She believes the world is headed back to religion, but not as we know it.
It's turning a full cycle. It's got just about as rotten as it can, and now we're going back to spiritual values. But we aren't going via the established church. Kids aren't going to swallow Jonah and the whale and the Garden of Eden. The textbooks they're reading now are the textbooks of tomorrow. But they've got a textbook of faith which is over 2,000 years old. The world's been around for millions of years, and we've only allotted 70. That's a pretty short stick. The kids are searching for more continuation of this life, and a greater psychic awareness is the way they can do it.
Over the past couple of years, Mrs. Eastling has noticed an increase in the number of young people attending her lectures.
They want to know more about a spiritual involvement with things around them and a spiritual evolvement of themselves, and they come to my lectures with the hope of finding that.
Mrs. Eastling believes everyone has the potential for psychic awareness, but
we've become so cluttered with gadgetry that we've forgotten how to do it.
She believes that early man communicated with spirits as easily as we communicate via radio and television, but
modern mechanization has blacked out the clear, concise vision of these things for us. All around us are people with these psychic gifts, but they feel guilty and hide them. The young aren't so afraid to come to grips with their gifts.
Sydney bookstores report a tremendous interest in books on the supernatural. Mrs. E. Abbey from Abbey's Bookshop says their best sellers are on Eastern mysticism, ESP, black magic, or astrology.
Once mainly housewives bought these books, but we've noticed a lot of young people buying them over the past year or so.
She says, Dymocks, which is another book store here in Sydney, still going, Dymocks carries a large range of books on the supernatural. Witchcraft and demonology sell well, as do books on ESP. The Adya Bookshop says sales have increased over the past year, and it's mainly young people who are buying. Sydney people in the psychic research world are reluctant to talk about their gifts. Many feel they will be misrepresented or maligned. A spokeswoman for the Psychic Research Society said,
"We have people doing wonderful work here, but they won't talk. The whole field has been given such a bad name that these people are frightened of being ridiculed."
I'll just quickly stop again and say, let's see now, this was 1972, 50 years ago. 50 years ago. And investigations into the claims of the paranormal with James Randi and so forth have been going on longer than 50 years. So, I think all the people around the world claiming psychic powers and whatever have been given decades to put their case and to change society by showing science a new sphere of research, and it just hasn't come to fruition. And they can't just keep blaming other people for being non-believers. Rant over. We pick it up after she says people will be frightened of being ridiculed, but they will probably not have to hide much longer. There is a tremendous amount of academic interest in psychic research at the moment. People of unquestionable respectability are looking at the whole field with a growing curiosity. Universities have conducted, and are still conducting, detailed experiments into different facets of the field. Professor J.B. Ryan, professor of parapsychology at Duke University, North Carolina, is one man who has done recent serious work on the subject. His team has established a high reputation for its scientific experiments in telepathy, clairvoyance, and psychokinesis, the power of thought over matter. Now it is starting to investigate psychic healing. Professor H.J. Eisnick, who holds the chair of psychology at the University of London and is director of 2 leading hospitals, has done work in telepathy.
Unless there is a gigantic conspiracy involving some 30 university departments all over the world and several hundred highly respectable scientists in various fields, many of them originally hostile to the claims of these psychical researchers, the only conclusion must be that there does exist a small number of people who obtain knowledge existing in other people's minds or in the outer world, by means as yet unknown to science.
Psychic research has even invaded the space program. During the Apollo 14 mission to the moon in February last year, astronaut Ed Mitchell attempted to establish telepathic contact with selected people on Earth. The results of the experiment have not been released. So that report comes from 50 years ago, and also included on the page some diagrams. We have some squiggly writing. Squiggles could be names. It says supernatural phenomena, ? Spirit messages written by a medium in a trance. And also on the page we have a photograph which is sort of difficult to make out. It looks like a box or a container with something blurry on the top. It says, the handkerchief that took its own picture as it broke an electrical connection, moving apparently under its own power at the instigation of a medium. Yeah, not very convincing, I'm afraid. So that was The Psychic Side of Society, written way back on the 29th of June, 1972, in the pages of the Sydney Morning Herald. And for many reasons it would be fun to have a time machine and go back and say to these people, look here, have you tried this? And of course things don't work that way, and as a society we must learn. We must do what a line I saw or I heard in a Terminator movie, and also on Doctor Who. We must get there the long way around. We can't shortcut. We can't just appear in the future. In order to get there, we have to go the long way around and learn, hopefully learn as we go. But you can learn all sorts of things as you go if you take a wander through the digital archives at Trove, at trove.nla.gov.au. But of course there are digital archives around the world, so if you want to check out what your country has to offer, you never know. You never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone this week. And don't forget, hearing about conventions, don't forget you can enjoy the convention here in Australia the first weekend of December. You know the links. Just head to skepticzone.tv and click the link at the bottom of the show notes, or simply head straight to skepticon.org.au. Thank you again to those people who contribute to the Skeptic Zone, once again at skepticzone.tv. The microphone you are hearing me through, into the sound recording device, which is very good, by the way. The microphone arm, indeed. The editing equipment is all thanks to the generous support of listeners just like you, in order for me to bring you hopefully a better listening experience. Coming up on next week's show, let me have a look. Oh, it's blank. Blank. I wonder what I'll do. I'll have to do some more research. What's coming up on next week's show is a mystery. If you want to solve the mystery, listen to next week's show. But just before I go, a big congratulations to our reporter Maynard, who put together a wonderful special just last night, which was broadcast on Mixcloud, on the Mixcloud system. His Mary Wilson special. It went for over an hour. Lots of jokes and laughs and Maynard being a goose. Lots of great music. And I look forward to Maynard's next special. And that should be about Weird Al Yankovic. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Hello to you people who listen after the music for the dice game. Here we go. I'm going to roll 2 D10s together. Bit of a difference. For those people who don't know, who accidentally have heard this for the first time, hearing this for the first time, sometimes I roll a die, 2 dice, mice, thrice, and you use your special gifts in the way of psychic powers or dumb luck to see if you can match the numbers that come up. But I'll be rolling 2 D10s, 10-sided dice, at the same time. So you get 2 numbers each time of the 3. And what's that aircraft flying over my studio at the moment, looking at my flight radar? Sydney to Bangkok. Airbus A330-303. Qantas. QFA23. There you go. Sometimes it's difficult to record between aircraft. So, first roll coming up, 2 dice. D10s. And the first numbers coming up are 7 and 6. And if you want to get very technical, the red die is 7 and the white die is 6. Next one. This time the red die is 7, but the white die is 1. I wonder what it means. Last time, here we go. Guess away. This time the red die is 1, and the white die is 10. I suppose I could add all those up and divide by 3 and I don't know what. Today's winning numbers are 7 and 6, 7 and 1, 1 and 10.